Welcome to the TalentGrow Show, where you can get actionable, results-oriented insight and advice on how to take your leadership, communication, and people skills to the next level and become the kind of leader people want to follow. And now, your host and leadership development strategist, Halelly Azulay.
Welcome back to the TalentGrow Show. I'm Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist. And before I introduce today's guest, I wanted to be sure that you got the news that we have a brand new community page on Facebook. And I want to make sure that you join us. This is a private group. It's for you, the Talent Growers community of listeners. And it's there to serve as a gathering place to share insights, give and get advice, and generally be in a supportive environment with other people who are interested in taking their leadership game to the next level, like you. We would love to have you join us. Search for Talent Growers Community on Facebook and ask to join. I'll approve you, and then introduce yourself and get the conversation flowing. I can't wait to see you there. But first, I can't wait for you to hear this great show I have for you today. My guest is Chris Voss, co-author of the national business bestseller, Never Split the Difference. Chris is a negotiations consultant and an award-winning business school professor. After 24 years as an FBI hostage negotiator, Chris founded the Black Swan Group, a firm that solves business communication problems with hostage negotiation strategies. And he's a very funny guy who gets me giggling through this entire episode. So I think that he will get you laughing too. But we discussed some pretty counterintuitive negotiation tips that Chris suggests based on his vast hostage negotiation experience that you could immediately apply to your daily negotiations in business and in life to see a positive impact on your negotiation results. Without further ado, here we go. Chris Voss on the TalentGrow Show. I'm Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist, here with negotiations expert and best-selling author, Chris Voss. Chris, welcome to the TalentGrow Show.
Thank you very much. An absolute pleasure to be here.
I'm happy that you're here, and I cannot wait to get into everything that you have to share about your experience and knowledge about negotiations. It's a topic that comes up a lot in my work. But before we do, I always like to get my guests to encapsulate their entire career in a couple of minutes. That's the hardest part of this interview. After that, everything will probably be easy. But where have you been? How did you get to where you are today?
Well, once upon a time, a long time ago, I was a frog, if you will. No one ever kissed me and turned me into a handsome prince, but I grew up in a small town in Iowa, a very small town. My town, how small was it? My town was so small. We did have 6 traffic lights in our local area. We're kind of big, with
Wow.
6 lights. That's a big deal from my part of the world. So that's where I grew up, a small town Midwestern guy. And then, sort of ricocheted, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, New York, Washington, D.C., Boston, Washington again. Almost all those ricochets were with the FBI. Kansas City was KCMOPD. I was a cop in Kansas City. And the next thing I knew, I found myself doing international kidnapping negotiations with the FBI.
Wow.
I was lucky enough. I did an interview. I was back for a high school reunion. I graduated from high school 6,000 years ago. But I was back for a high school reunion in my hometown 2 summers ago. And I did an interview with my hometown paper. Now, this is how big my town was. Our newspaper came out every day. So I was flattered to get to do this interview. And the editor said, my God, she says, Mount Pleasant, Iowa to New York City, Joint Terrorist Task Force, FBI. She said, how did you get there? And I just thought about all the different places in the side trips I took. And I said, well, you go up to I-80 and you make a right.
Oh, my
God.
gosh.
I don't know that I can do a better job explaining it than that.
Okay. So you were with the FBI 24 years. And then where are you now? What are you doing now? How did you get from there to here?
Well, got this crazy idea that hostage negotiation could apply to business and personal negotiations. And, test drove the concept at Harvard Law School and worked out there and taught there and then started teaching in 2 different business schools, first at Georgetown University in D.C. and now at the University of Southern California here in L.A. And then wrote a book, Never Split the Difference, came out this past May and has been really well received. And the kind of stuff we hear about the book is exactly, I think, what any author wants to hear is that, counterintuitive, easy to read, applicable skills, stuff that I never thought of that make a big difference. I mean, people are making huge differences with these hostage negotiation ideas are very counterintuitive. You don't got to be Einstein to apply this. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't need to be a Nobel Prize winner. Regular people can apply this stuff and have it make huge differences. I mean, literally from negotiations with a 13-year-old son who wants a video game to a contractor that's asking for too much for their service.
That is so rewarding, right? When people tell you that your book made a difference in their life.
Yeah. I don't think I could ask for anything more. I really makes me very happy. I like to help people get better at whatever they're doing. That's
awesome. Well, we look forward to you helping us out. Everybody, definitely, you need to get this book. It is a great book. And I really love, there's 9 different principles and lots of tactics and strategies and a lot of really cool stories. And I love the prepare a negotiation one sheet in the back. There's this appendix where it just takes you step by step through how you can prepare for a negotiation. Obviously, that's not the only thing, but I like really actionable things like that. So we're going to make a link to the listeners of this show that are most likely not negotiating about life or death situations like you are in hostage negotiations. So what do you think are some of the most counterintuitive advice that you've brought from the world of hostage negotiations into the world of business negotiations?
I think the biggest one is yes is a useless word. It just, people are so in love with yes. And when I was working on the book, I can remember I worked with 4 different authors. And the third guy wrote the book proposal. And then the fourth guy, Tal Raz, wrote the book. And Tal is a flippin' genius. This is not the first great business negotiation book he's been involved in. And that's why I got him, because he had been the architect, the co-writer of another book, Never Eat Alone.
Right, Keith Ferrazzi.
Yeah, which just blew me away. And it blew me away at how readable it was. And if I wanted to make a book that was that easy to read and enjoyable to read, and I finally got Tal. But the guy I worked with earlier that helped me with the proposal, we were sitting around talking one day, and he said, it's this issue of yes. What's the problem with yes? Whoa. Sorry about that. What in the world does that come from? Sorry. Ooh.
You should have your live audience for the podcast, and they're cheering you.
I had a cheering section going there, right? I need to have them wherever I go. Like when I come home at night after a long day, if I have a cheering section here waiting for me, that'd make me really happy, right?
Yes. Every idea is brilliant. They love it.
It scared me too. But anyway, let me go back to before I scared myself. One of the writers says, Chris, as a hostage negotiator, how'd you get people to say yes? It was the only question I ever just thoroughly stumped me. It was such a useless word that hostage negotiators don't even bother with it. It doesn't have anything to do really with agreement. Most of the time, yes is fake agreement. Yes by itself means nothing. It's usually yes and, or yes or yes but. And everything that comes after the word after yes is what you're after. What comes after the word and? What comes after the word but? That makes or breaks your deal, and yes, but is something we hear more than anything else in our lives. And but is an erasing word, which made that yes in the first place useless. So a fake agreement also masquerades under 2 different real common phrases. Maybe is a horrible word. And also you're right is awful. Your right is worse than death. Your right is a kiss of death. Your right is when somebody is really saying to you, look, I still like you. I want to maintain this relationship, but please stop talking.
Your right is the kiss of death. That's a tweetable. So say more. What do we want instead of yes and instead of you're right?
Well, first of all, that's right is the epiphany moment. That's right is a breakthrough moment when the other person says that's right. That's right, is what you say when you're all in. And when you completely and totally believe in what the other person has just said. Anybody that listens to your podcast, you're probably either a Trump fan or a Hillary fan in the last presidential election. So when you were watching them debate, when one of the candidates that you like said something that you thoroughly agreed with, you looked at the TV and you pointed your finger and you said, "That's right."
Mm-hmm.
You didn't look at the TV and say, "You're right." You said, "That's right." And that's right. Is what people say when they believe they have heard the complete and indisputable truth. Indisputable. And also, when someone says "you're right" to us, if we get someone, or when someone says "that's right" to us, if they say "that's right," we're actually implementing the age-old advice that we got from Stephen Covey when Covey said, "Seek first to understand, then be understood." To know when you understand the other person, they will tell you by looking at you and saying, "That's right." And that's also, they're confirming without also knowing it, is that they feel bonded to you. They feel empathy with you. And at that empathy moment, we're then ready to proceed. And that's why it's so powerful.
I definitely want to talk to you more about empathy, but let's talk a little more about no, since you raised it. And yes and no. So you have a chapter in the book about no and how we should actually seek no instead of seeking yes. And that's, of course, definitely against all of the age-old advice. I mean, Getting to Yes is the name of the classic, book by Uri and Fisher. And so why no?
Yeah, you know what? And they even wrote another book that said called Getting Past No, as if no was this horrible thing. So, these two books have made everyone who's read them the hostage of no or the hostage of yes, because either you so desire yes, you're a hostage, or you're so afraid, horrified by no. But here's what happens when people say no. No is protection. And when you've just protected yourself, you relax, you actually listen more closely. No is empowering. When you say no, you feel more powerful. So, and we began to discover, we kind of stumbled over this towards the tail end of my hostage negotiation career, and we started to experiment with it in our laboratory, which is the world, since. And we found that, like, asking someone, like when I call people on the phone, I don't say, "Do you have a few minutes to talk?" I say, "Is now a bad time to talk?" Those are two completely different answers. And when I ask someone, "Is now a bad time to talk?" I only get one of two answers. They'll hesitate for half a second, and then they'll say, no, it's never a bad time to talk to you." And at least for the next 15 seconds, I have their complete and undivided attention, which is those are 15 golden moments that are very difficult to get. The other answer that people get is they'll say, "Well, yeah, it is a bad time, but I got time at 2:00 tomorrow." They will always volunteer a better time. And so I just got my goal anyway. I just got to wait till the appointment that they gave me. So that's one example. And then nearly any yes question can be switched to a no by putting, "Is it ridiculous? Is it impossible?" in front of it. And we always say, "Is it a ridiculous idea for Chris Voss to be on a podcast?" Well, no, I'd love to do that. And we've actually found a lot of people, because people are used to others trying to drag yes out of them. There's this whole yes momentum, yes trapping behavior that has got everyone gun shy of yes, saying yes. It's like everybody's like battered children. If I say to you, "Do you want to make more money?" I'm going someplace with that.
So we feel like we're being manipulated because it's happened.
Exactly. And we duck, we shy. Some battered child, someone tries to give him a hug, the child still ducks, even though the hug was well intentioned. So even if you're well intentioned and trying to seek your yes, somebody else has already battered them, and whoever it is, regardless of your intention, they're going to duck. They're going to be worried. So no takes us immediately out of that dynamic. It's a real way to trigger really quick responses from people. I'll tell you another one we like an awful lot. Asking the question, "Have you given up on this project?" That gets
when do you ask that?
Quick response. That's the perfect context for that, is when someone's gone silent on you. If you're having trouble getting somebody to respond They're not responding to emails, text messages. They're not returning your calls. When someone goes silent on you, they're telling you two things. They still like you, because if they didn't, they'd tell you. They're hoping that something will work out, but hope is not a strategy, and so they don't have anything beyond hope. And they're also telling you that your approach up to now has failed, because if it worked, they'd be talking to you.
Right.
So they're implicitly telling you that you're failing with them. So what you got, and how you open it back up is, have you given up on this project? Have you given up on whatever it might be? And originally got this structure of this specific question from someone who was doing fundraising for Republicans. And they'll respond, but that in the next moment, you have to interact with them differently, what you have up to that time. And what you probably really need to do is get that right out of them. Summarize the situation from their perspective and summarize the negatives that they feel about it, and do not proceed. And the negatives that they feel have to be part of it. It seems like I've been unfair to you. It seems like I haven't been listening to you. It seems like you put a lot of effort into this up to now, and your effort has been fruitless, and I just haven't been cooperating. If you can summarize that, they will open up to you in ways that you've never heard or seen before.
That's great advice. So what I'm hearing is, when you feel like things are not going as well as you would like, if you can summarize the negatives, actually, you're showing that you're listening. You're showing that you are abreast and aware of what's going on, and that you can see things from their perspective, which is empathy. And you're phrasing it in a way where you're giving them, they don't have to prove it to you anymore because you got it. Right. Yeah. It shows a deep appreciation and respect for their position. It gives you great credibility, and it actually shows great fearlessness on your part. I mean, and if you are fearless with them, it's easier for them to have much more faith in you, because you're fearless and you have this credibility. And does it give you more leverage too, because you're fearless, like you have less to lose?
It's an interesting question. I think it does on some levels, because of the just much stronger position you have with them in terms of credibility. And if people are much more eager to follow somebody who's fearless.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then you advocate that we try to get the answer no out of our negotiation counterpart, but you also say that we should avoid saying no.
Well, I like to teach people to let out no a little at a time. There's ways to slowly back into it, to indicate that you want to continue to collaborate, but you're trying to indicate that you have problems. Like the first best way to say no is, and it has to be said properly. It has to be said, how do you say it? You have to say it deferentially. You have to say, how am I supposed to do that? And just in that tone of voice, like you're asking for help. That communicates a desire to cooperate, but a real problem with the particular path being proposed. And the thing that I talked about earlier that works with both 13-year-olds and contractors is that exact phrase. It's one of the most universal, effective ways to say no that we have. I mean, it works magnificently. It'll take care of 75% of your problems.
All right, everybody. So you're listening, you memorizing this one? How am I supposed to do that?
How am I supposed to do that? It's a great answer. And two examples, and the person on the other side did exactly the same thing. A woman's 13-year-old son is trying to get her to buy a video game and pay for, and he wants her to pay the whole thing. And she looks at him, she says, how am I supposed to do that? He says, all right, Mom, I'll pay half. So immediately he drops his position by 50%. A businessman, friend of mine here in Los Angeles, he's got a contractor who's working for his business, and the guy's giving him a price for work, and he looks at him and he says, how am I supposed to do that? And the contractor cut his price by half.
Wow. There's a lot to be gained from that one sentence.
Contractors and 13-year-old kids are pretty much the same thing.
Oh my God. And hostage negotiators and hostage holders. So let's talk about the role of emotions. And what I'm really curious about is, obviously to be good communicators, We need to be able to read the other person's emotions and not to ignore them. But I know that a lot of the people that I talk to about negotiations are really worried about being in control of their own emotions, especially if the other side is, let's say, if they're being unforthcoming or, or if they say something that seems ludicrous to you. A lot of times, or if if you have a lot on the line, you're asking for a raise, or you might be leaving the job, or you're asking for a promotion or something like this. There's so many emotions that you have attached to the outcome. So it's really hard to stay calm, and obviously to become emotional is not going to be very helpful. What do you suggest?
There's kind of a double strategy, and it's exactly what hostage negotiators did to keep themselves under control. And so the first strategy is there's a compartmentalization that goes on in the brain when you start really trying hard to see the other person's perspective and their emotions. And the more time you think on, like, what are they thinking in this situation? They might be worried about losing me. Like if I leave a position that's open, they have to be concerned about who could do my work. They have to be concerned about filling my role. I mean, the more your emotions get compartmentalized and out of the way as soon as you start working on picking up the other side's emotions. It's kind of this automatic thing that happens in the brain. So as soon as you switch your empathy switch on, your own chaotic emotions get dialed down immediately. At the same time, hostage negotiators are taught to use, in contentious negotiations, what we refer to as the late night FM DJ voice. And the magic of that voice is its sound calms both them and you. Because when you use that voice, your voice goes out into the air, and part of it makes a loop and comes back in your brain, and it hits a portion of your brain called mirror neurons, and it creates this virtuous cycle of calming you down. So if you can get control of your own voice, as soon as you do, you calm down also. Now everybody wake up. When I count to 3, go out and buy my book.
Oh, wow. I can't wait to try that. I have to say, it sounds like it could either work magnificently, or, the cynic in my head is like, the other person's going to think something's wrong with you. And why are you talking like that?
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about it, because like I do this all the time. I get this exercise called 60 Seconds So She Dies. And I'm the hostage taker and you're the hostage negotiator. And I say to you, I need to call in 60 seconds so she dies. And when I do that, through the course of that role play, I use a voice that gets them really combative. I become very argumentative with them, very direct and blunt, a blunt force trauma voice. And then I will switch to the late night FM DJ voice and immediately calm people down. I mean, I enjoy using this voice. I test drive it all the time to prove to myself over and over and over again that it works.
Cool. And
that's the only way for any of your listeners to actually find out about any of this, is to try it themselves.
Absolutely.
And see if it works.
Absolutely. Oh, and you're giving things that are really not that hard to try. This is not rocket science, but it can make a huge difference. So I love it, how actionable it is. What's really exciting now for you? Do you have any new projects, new discoveries that are on your horizon and energizing you?
Well, we're getting this out. We're getting the book out to more and more people, and I'm getting the biggest charge out of that. I mean, I think I like to keep track of how many people go to Amazon and rate it, and the Amazon ratings are through the roof.
Wow!
And we just, we want to get it. I speak to conferences. I'm spreading the gospel, if you will. So this is a lot of fun, and I'm a lot of fun on the feedback we're getting from people who found the book, and I hear through the grapevine, like everywhere. And I recently heard, and I can't name him because he hasn't told me this himself, but one of the rock star negotiation instructors at Harvard Business School, it was just recently passed to me, a guy I admire greatly, that he thinks the book really breaks ground. And so hearing back from people that I admire that they think the book makes a contribution is really cool too.
Wow. Yeah. And of course, the Harvard model is that quintessential model that people teach from about negotiations. So to have it from sort of the Mecca, that is meaningful. Congratulations to you. That's great.
Yeah, I was really happy to hear that.
So before we wrap up, we always make sure that we give our listeners really actionable advice, something that they can apply right away. And I think you already have. But what would you say is something that people can apply today, tomorrow, right away in their life, in their role, whatever role they want to, that can make them better negotiators?
Make it a point to hear the other side out and get a that's right out of them before you make your point. This is how do you action the advice that Stephen Covey, seek first to understand, then be understood. How do we do that? I want people to action that by, first let the other side talk. Go silent instead of making your point. Let them have their say and do the best you can to get a that's right out of them. You'll find you get to agreement much more quickly. It's a delay that saves time. But let the other side have their say first. See what happens.
And if more people did that in this world in general, what a better world it would be, right? I mean, we would have less conflict and more people being able to see eye to eye.
Yeah, we really would. We'd save a lot of time, too. We'd save all that arguing time.
For sure. There's a quote I really liked in your book. It says, every negotiation, every conversation, every moment of life is a series of small conflicts that, managed well, can rise to creative beauty. Embrace them. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yes. Amen.
Amen to that. So I really appreciate everything that you've shared with us today, Chris. And your book is fabulous. And I definitely think it should be on every business person's shelf, because negotiations are in your world, whether you like them or not, all around you. And as you mentioned, if you have kids or no kids, you already know that they begin to practice negotiations from the moment that they can assert themselves. So all of us are in places where we could get better outcomes, both for us and the other person, and for the world, if we could do negotiations more masterfully, more effectively. How can people stay in touch with you, learn more about you, and communicate with you if they want to?
Okay, sure. I'm going to mention three quick things. And just as a reminder, the book's title is Never Split the Difference. And, you can buy it a bunch of places. Amazon still has the best price. Our website is blackswanltd.com, BLACKSWANLTD.com. And we've got a lot of different ways to help people get better in negotiations. We got some free stuff there. Free. If it's free, I'll take three, as an old friend of mine used to always say. So we got free tools for you. And one of those free tools is this once a week negotiation newsletter we put out called The Edge. And the easiest way to subscribe to The Edge is a complimentary subscription. If you text the words, that's right, no punctuation, no spaces, just THATSRIGHT. Again, no punctuation, no spaces. Text that's right to the number 22828. And again, that's 22828. You can sign up for the complimentary newsletter and become a Black Swan.
I love that. So, all right. Well, you've got a lot of actions, folks, that you can take. But I would say if you even just take one of them, you're going to be ahead. So thank you, Chris. Appreciate your wisdom. We appreciate your time. And thank you for sharing that with the Talent Growers community here.
Oh, this is fun. I'm privileged to be on with you. Thank you.
You didn't know we were going to change the world with this podcast episode, right? But here we are. Well, I hope you take the actions that Chris suggests as soon as possible. I want you to go to our Facebook group, join us if you haven't already, and then write down one action that you took as a result of this show and the results that you saw. Or, if you prefer, tell us about an upcoming negotiation that you're kind of nervous about, and let us help you prepare. We are the Talent Growers, and together we can all rise. Hey, did you hear the news? The Talent Grow Show podcast, that's this podcast, has been selected to be a showcase podcast on the C-Suite Radio Network, the premier source for the world's leading business podcasts for C-suite leaders, business executives, and entrepreneurs. C-Suite Radio features premium content from top thought leaders designed to increase knowledge, deepen understanding, and build skills to enhance listeners' personal and professional lives. I'm really proud to be part of that network, to have been selected. So go to csuiteradio.com. That's C-suiteradio. That's all one word, .com. And you can see my show there, as well as all the other great business podcasts that are featured on that network. I'm Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist. Well, thank you for listening today. I appreciate you. And as always, until the next time, make today great. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the TalentGrow Show, where we help you develop your talent to become the kind of leader that people want to follow. For more information, visit talentgrow.com.